Here's something to celebrate for a change, something to be happy about. AP reports, although the AP is not happy. Louisiana has become the first state to require that the 10 Commandments be displayed in every public school classroom. The latest move from a GOP-dominated legislature pushing a conservative agenda under a new governor. Can you imagine that? The media is shocked and appalled to have Republican legislatures that are actually pushing Republican agendas. And it is shocking. We're not used to this kind of thing. Historically, Republican legislatures don't push Republican agendas. So anytime you see it happen, you're taken aback by it. The legislation that Republican Governor Jeff Landry signed into law on Wednesday requires a poster-sized display of the 10 Commandments in large, easily readable font in all public classrooms from kindergarten to state-funded universities. Landry said, if you want to respect the rule of law, you've got to start with the original lawgiver, which was Moses. Opponents questioned the law's constitutionality and vowed to challenge it in court. Proponents said the measure is not solely religious, but that it has historical significance. In the language of the law, the 10 Commandments are foundational documents of our state and national government. The posters, which will be paired with a 4-paragraph context statement describing how the 10 Commandments were a prominent part of the American public education for almost 3 centuries, must be in place in classrooms by the start of 2025. And also worth noting, under the law, state funds will not be used to implement the mandate. The posters would be paid for through donations. The law also authorizes but does not require the display of other items in K through 12 public schools, including the Mayflower Compact, which was signed by religious pilgrims aboard the Mayflower in 1620. It's often referred to as America's first constitution, the Declaration of Independence, the Northwest Ordinance, which established a government in the Northwest Territory and created a pathway for admitting new states to the Union. So you can display that. You don't have to, but you do have to display the 10 Commandments. So this will obviously be challenged in court. Will it survive the court challenges? I don't know. It'll be a tough road given the makeup of the courts. Should it survive the challenges? Yes. Of course it should. Now, as you would expect, and as mentioned in the article, people are upset about this policy, and that's not surprising, but it makes a lot of sense. And it certainly makes a hell of a lot more sense to have the 10 Commandments in classrooms than to have, say, pride flags and all of that kind of nonsense. The 10 Commandments serve as the moral foundation for our system of law. Not just ours, but all of Western civilization. So even if you look at them from a purely secular perspective, from that point of view, you would have to at least acknowledge that they are the most influential set of rules or laws ever set down. I mean, there's no doubt about it. So they are highly relevant from an historical perspective, from a legal perspective, from an anthropological perspective. And that's, again, without even getting into the biblical, moral, spiritual perspective. And all of that means that it's relevant from an educational perspective. Because history, the law, anthropology, all of these things are supposed to be part of a child's education. Every child in school should know the 10 Commandments. In order to be literate and to possess the most basic knowledge of history and human society, you need to know the 10 Commandments. So it should be a part of a child's education. Now, compare this again to, for example, pride flags. Most of the people who oppose 10 Commandments in the classroom support having pride flags in the classroom. And this is an important comparison because, the reality probably is that, and I don't know if this is the case. It doesn't need to, that putting the 10 Commandments in the classroom does not need to be a response to anything that the left is doing. It's a good idea on its own terms. But I also think it's highly likely that if the left had not spent the last many years going massively overboard trying to inject even the most radical elements of their ideological agenda into the classroom, if they had not done that, then, I don't know, would Louisiana have passed this law? Again, they should regardless. But I think there is also an attitude from some on the right, which I totally understand, of course, which is that, okay, if this is what you guys are going to do, if this is how you want to play it, if you're going to put pride flags in the classroom, then we're putting the 10 Commandments in the classroom. And there's a much better argument, of course, for the 10 Commandments than pride flags. What's the value of a pride flag or any kind of gay pride paraphernalia in the classroom? What's the value? What's the educational value? Does the concept of gay pride have any real historical relevance? It doesn't. It's only like 5 minutes ago that anyone ever talked about gay pride, the concept. Okay, mid-20th century at the earliest is as far as you can go back. You go any farther back than that, and you go to anybody and you talk about gay pride, they would look at you like, they wouldn't even understand what you're saying. So, does it serve as the foundation for anything in our society? No. Is there any real academic value to children learning about the pride flag and what it means? If you meet a child who can tell you all about the pride flag and rattle off the history of it and point to the different colors and tell you what they stand for, if you meet a child who is in that unfortunate position where they know all that stuff, is that an indication that this is a really well-educated child? No. Can a child be literate and well-informed and educated and yet not know anything about the pride flag? Yes. So it's pretty clear which of the two wins out in this contest. As opposed to a child gets through public schooling and graduates, and if he doesn't know anything about the Bible, if he cannot tell you what the 10 Commandments are, can't even give you 5 of the 10 or something, can't tell you anything about the Bible, well, then that tells you that his education was sorely lacking. There's a basic level of literacy and historical understanding that he lacks. Now, does it violate the First Amendment to have the 10 Commandments in the classroom? My answer to that is, are you stupid? What kind of question is that? I know they're going to be able to find activist judges who say, oh, this is an infringement on the First Amendment. I know that's going to happen. But it's still stupid. Of course it does not violate the First Amendment. The First Amendment, what does the First Amendment, when it comes to religion, what prohibitions or restrictions does the First Amendment put on the government? Well, there's one. It forbids Congress from making a law respecting the establishment of religion. That's what the First Amendment does. So we have to ask ourselves, the Louisiana legislature, is it Congress? No. Did they pass a law respecting an establishment of religion or imposing a state religion? No. So it's got nothing to do with the First Amendment. It is not any kind of infringement on the First Amendment. I know in recent times we have been told that really the First Amendment means that religion cannot be acknowledged, can't even be acknowledged in any kind of public setting, particularly in any kind of setting where the government is. The way we look at it now is according to the First Amendment. This is probably, if you talk to the average person, you ask them like, well, what does the First Amendment say about religion? What restrictions are there? And they would probably tell you this. They would probably tell you that basically the First Amendment says, because they couldn't quote it to you, but They tell you that, basically the First Amendment says that the government can't say anything about, can't acknowledge religion. It's like religion doesn't exist as far as the government's concerned. But that is not the case. And the good news here also is that the Ten Commandments are a part of multiple major world religions. So that's all the more reason why Louisiana cannot be accused of establishing or respecting imposing a state religion. That's clearly not happening. All they're really imposing, if anything, is a well-rounded education on children who are in the public school system. Children who will now, because of the Ten Commandments being in the classroom, will now be exposed to such, controversial and provocative ideas, such as like, don't kill people, respect your parents, don't steal. These are the provocative, outrageous, controversial ideas that the left is now worried kids might be exposed to. They're going to be confused. And they might be confused. It might create some awkward questions for some of these kids. And it's a good thing if it gets them thinking. Who knows? Maybe some of them will come home and they'll say, hey, I saw the Ten Commandments in the classroom. It says, thou shalt not kill. But you, Mom, told me that abortion is okay. How does that work? Maybe it will get some of the kids to ask those questions to their parents. Questions those parents will not be able to answer. Hey, YouTube, thanks for listening to the show. If you'd like access to my full show with no ads, you should go to dailywire.com and use promo code Walsh to get 2 months free on all annual plans. See you there.